I walk in a room, people notice. I tell a joke, people laugh. I sell a product and people buy. I cast a vision and I watch people follow. Now what feeling comes to mind? A lot of people will say empowered, feeling successful, and all of these positive things. And I just say significant. Like I'm in a meeting and I feel significant. I know why I'm in the meeting. I'm in a relationship and I feel significant. I know why I'm in this relationship. I'm at work feeling significant. I know why I work there. And so we realize that significance and impact are directly correlated to our purpose. And now it's much more than just a sales and marketing strategy to persuade people to do something. It's really about the impact that we have on the world.
Hello, Rene.
How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for coming to our podcast. It's an honor to have you here. I want to bring you for a long time. Actually, reached out because I wasn't sure that you will be able to join our podcast, but I give it a shot, and here you are. So, thank you very much for coming.
Oh, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I love what you guys are doing.
Thank you, thank you. So, can you introduce a little bit yourself to the audience?
Yeah, my name is Rene Rodriguez. My background is in behavioral neuroscience. And so I look at leadership, influence, persuasion, selling, communication, all of that from an applied neuroscience perspective. And so there's 30 years of experience in applying it, plus a really strong network of people that provide the science. And so we combine and together to really come up with applicable tools that we're using on a daily basis. And my book, Amplify Your Influence, is really about the science of influence, not being an influencer, but creating influence from a very different perspective. And so it's, that's what I've been doing for 30 years now.
Okay, that's great. So, this book actually is a bestseller, right?
Yeah, we were a #2 Wall Street Journal bestseller.
That's great. That's great. And can you elaborate a little bit on the influence side? Because influence and influencers, it's a word that many don't actually understand. So can you elaborate? What do you mean by influence?
Yeah. Well, the best way to understand influence is to remove it. So pretend that you walk into a room and no one notices. You tell a joke and no one laughs. You sell a product and no one buys. You cast a vision and no one follows. Usually the feeling that people report is the feeling of invisible, defeated, deflated. I report the feeling of insignificant. And so this feeling of when I have no influence, I feel insignificant, begs the question of what's my purpose? Because if I'm in a meeting and I feel insignificant, I would ask myself why I'm in this meeting. If I was in a relationship and I felt insignificant, I'd ask myself, why am I in this relationship? If I was at work feeling insignificant, I'd ask myself, why do I work here? And so when you remove influence, we immediately ask the question of purpose, of why. Why am I doing this? Because it begs the question of part of my purpose is to create impact and influence. And if I can't do that, then I question my purpose. So bring it back. I walk in a room, people notice. I tell a joke, people laugh. I sell a product and people buy. I cast a vision and I watch people follow. Now what feeling comes to mind? A lot of people will say empowered, feeling successful, and all of these positive things. And I just say significant. Like I'm in a meeting and I feel significant. I know why I'm in the meeting. I'm in a relationship and I feel significant. I know why I'm in this relationship. I'm at work feeling significant. I know why I work there. And so we realize that significance and impact are directly correlated to our purpose. And now it's much more than just a sales and marketing strategy to persuade people to do something. It's really about the impact that we have on the world.
Yeah. This connection, honestly, I have heard from you, and it is so smart because many people have influence as something bad. So basically, it's what characterizes you as a human. Like you want to be significant. Basically, you want to become known, so people can recognize what you do. So I it comes to me. Okay, so first of all, how can I actually make that happen? How can I feel significant? Do I have to rely on others, see the significant part of me, or can I manipulate myself to feel significant?
Well, I think that feeling of significance comes from being able to recognize the impact that we have on the world. And so I caution people of waiting for others to make you feel that way, because a lot of times people won't show up to do that, or they've got their own agendas, or unintentionally just don't do that. I look at it as saying, how do I grow my impact? So I caution people on depending on others to create it. And so if we take ownership on it and say, okay, how do I become somebody who's a very good communicator? How do I tell stories that are entertaining? How do I tell stories and communicate in a way that's relevant to the people listening? And that comes with this question of what this means to you, and or what's even in it for you. We've heard the acronym of WIIFM or WIFM, what's in it for me, but it's much deeper than just what's in it for me. How do I tell a story and capture your attention and then deliver a message with that attention? Because if I don't have your attention, I can't deliver messages. And so if I have your attention, now I deliver a message. Well, how do they know what to do with the message? That's where the third part comes into play and saying, here's what it means to you. And if you can put those three in play, that's the Amplify formula of frame, message, tie down. Frame captures attention, message delivers the information, the tie down answers the question of what it means to you. If you can string those together, that's where real influence starts to take place.
Okay. I feel that also feeling significant is if you actually do something about, like you take action. I have always that in my mind. Like when I feel like shit, basically, if I do something, if I work, this feeling goes away.
Yeah.
So, do you think that this is also a remedy to feeling insignificant?
Yeah, and you nailed it. I think there it's taking action on something is going to create impact. And when I create impact, I see the results of my effort. And when I take action on things and nothing results, then I don't feel real good. I tried, but it didn't work. And so then you have a choice. Do you give up or do you find a new way of doing it? And so to me, of course, obviously it's you keep going until you figure out your way. I'm 30 years doing this, but most of those years were failure. Doing things that nobody paid attention to, putting videos out that nobody watched. And instead of saying, okay, well, it must not be valuable, my thought was, okay, someone else is doing it. How do I learn that? There's got to be a methodology for this. There's got to be a way. I can figure it out in front of the room. I can do it one-on-one. Why couldn't I do it on social media? It's probably a big question that you guys have been able to answer for people. There's ways to do ads, and then there's really the right way to do ads and marketing. And from it looks like you guys have figured out a really good methodology to do that versus someone who tries it, didn't do it with a professional, they tried it and they failed, they go, oh, ads don't work. Or is it maybe the ads in the way that you did it didn't work? But there's so many other ways to do that. And so part of it's having the mentality of going until you figure it out. And then, of course, surrounding yourself around the right people, finding the right coaches, listening to the right podcasts, consuming the right books, all of those things help that process happen faster.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So, in your case, do you think is everything skill? Is everything learnable? Because right now I watch you basically, and you are very charismatic. Like you know how to use your words. It's something that I honestly don't have that much, especially with English language. So I wanted to know, like, is this a skill that you can learn, or is it like it what extent is it a skill, or it's something that you had it in you?
It's 100% a skill that can be learned. I can go back to old videos of me back in 2003, stumbling over my words, completely nervous, mumbling, not being understandable. And just like anything that, it's the battle of nature versus nurture. Now, some people have a nature, meaning an innate, maybe a level of confidence or more serotonin and testosterone running through their veins. But if they're not surrounded by the right people, if they're not trained in the right way, it doesn't matter. Sales is not something that people are born with. Salespeople are not born, they're made. Leaders are not born, they're made. Influencers are not born, they're made. And thank God, because if it was something you were born with, then what business would I have? Well, you don't have it, so I can't help you. And so then I've taken people who are convinced that they don't have any influence, and within minutes they find a sequence and they process to tell a story that moves an entire audience in seconds. And they realize that, okay, so there's a process to this. Very similar to, I was convinced, 3 years ago that social media didn't work. And somebody showed me a new way of doing it. And then we grew to millions of followers. It's like, oh, there's a process to this. Okay. And here before I was saying, no, social media is just lucky. People like, content that's this way, that, nah, my content doesn't work on social. No, I was just doing it wrong. And so it's, when you can take ownership and realize that all of this can be learned, that's when the opportunities start to open up.
Yeah, yeah, but there are so many things that you need to learn that it's very difficult, right? I think. Also, I want to jump into something else because you talk about sales and something that we do as well. We have an agency, so basically we go to sales calls with people. And you have learned you have said before that learn how to sell and you always be employed, and that's very true. That's something that I definitely agree. Like the best salesman is going to take the client over me, even though I'm more skilled than him.
Right.
And the problem with that is with the sales technique is that I'm really good in sales in Greece, for example, because I'm known here. Like when I jump into a call, people know me. But when
Right.
I go, and we have like most of our clients is US and Canada, but when I go there, I have to prove myself. So I'm
Right.
in a lower status. So how do you actually combat that?
Well, one, the fact that you recognize it and that self-awareness is the first piece. Where do I fit? Like for me, there are certain places that I'm known and a lot of places that I'm not. And so the whole idea of status is an important one, not from an aesthetic or chasing status, but from a leverage perspective. How much leverage do I have here? And do I have to say more? The several reasons why I grew a personal brand, why I wrote the book, why I speak on stage is because those things do elevate your status. And what that does, status creates leverage. And leverage allows you to shorten your sales cycle time, allows people to listen to you faster, and it increases your impact on people. And so now some people can take leverage and abuse of it. And that's not what I'm talking about. there's there's a sense that happens when someone's on a stage and they get off the stage. For example, prior to me being a speaker, it would take me 6 to 9 months, if a year, to get access to the clients to hire me. If they see me speak once, they're waiting at the bottom of the steps saying, "How can I bring you in?" It completely eliminates that sales cycle. If you've read my book, that means that you've taken the time to do that. My status or my influence or my ethos, lots of different ways to say this, has gone up. And so that, you walk in and people are much more ready to act. And so there's, your personal brand, things that you guys do for people, growing social media following, being good at it, but then being good in person, put all those pieces make the process a lot easier and a lot faster. So you're asking me, how do you do that? One is to recognize this. And then how can you do something ahead of the meeting beforehand? How can you say, here's who we are, here's our story, whether it's a really powerful video, client testimonials, featured in articles, seeing your social media following. So then I go, oh, these guys are legit. Here's things that we've done. So if you do that prior to the meeting, you enter the meeting with a lot more leverage, higher status, and much more influence.
Yeah, I completely agree. But I also have to add that the best work that you need to do before the meeting is become known. This is the number one.
That's a hard one.
Yeah, of
Well, and
course.
if the pieces, let's say that if I can't be known, how do I do that? Well, if I have a good video, like a really well produced video that tells my story and shows where I'm at. That's why speaker reels for speakers are so important. It shows the stages that people have been on, who they've spoken with. And if I can show those things prior to the meeting, success stories, and if I come referred from someone, all of that stuff puts you in a much better position before the meeting begins. And so you can do that. Even if you're not known, you can still say, wow, I didn't know this person did that. Like, oh, man, did you know what these people do? And so then now the people that you're showing, they start telling your story and everyone gets excited for you to be there. But if that's done ahead of time, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, makes
Completely
sense.
agree. Like,
And here's the thing, if you don't do it ahead of time, you have to spend the first 30 minutes to 40 minutes doing that of the meeting. And if you've got an hour meeting, you're only gonna have 20 minutes to talk business. If it's done ahead of time, you have a full hour.
yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
completely agree. It's something that I've actually noticed a lot recently, to be honest with you, because we saw some ads that were doing really well. We had videos that were doing really well in US and Canada, and we swap them with images, static images, and the static images didn't actually convey a lot of information about us, but they were converting really, really well because we know how to create static ads. We have a team, so we know how to persuade to take action with static ads. The problem was that all the people that came through the static ads didn't actually know anything about us. So it was really hard inside the sales call. It was really hard to convince them.
Of course.
So yeah.
lots of people doing what you do. That's the hard part is when people have choices, why is it that they would choose you? And this is one of the things that I always tell even anybody in social media is apply what you do to me, apply it to yourself. And because I'm going to look at your accounts, I'm going to look at what you're doing. And if you're making me a promise of having 1 million followers, then you should have 1 million followers or a good amount, right? You should have something. If you got 400 followers and you're telling me you're going to get me 1 million, I'm going to say, hey, you know what? Why don't you, I hear you, but why don't you apply that to yourself first? And it's like a personal trainer that's overweight teaching me how to lose weight. I'm not going to listen to them. Or somebody who's broke saying, here's how you make money. Well, why don't you make money first and then show me what you did? You know, I don't go to a town that I've never been. Like, I don't go to Greece and give directions. I've never been there before. I'd love to go there, but I'm not going to be like, I get there my first day. Hey, how do I get here? I say, all right, well, you go down that street and then you take a right and you go down that street and then you go down over there. I think that's how you get there. Never been there, but I think it's the same thing. And so, you know, and now some people, to their credit, focus on clients more than themselves, right? And I totally get that. It's like the steel worker, the steel maker has wooden spoons. You know, it's like the cobbler, the shoemaker has no shoes. And so a lot of times we forget ourselves, which is a very understandable thing, because there's a lot of really talented people that haven't applied what they know to themselves, and they are much better for others. It's just we live in such an aesthetic and vanity world that from a business perspective, you have to be able to show yourself as well. The transparency is going to be a big one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That is so powerful. Actually, my personal trainer, because I have a personal trainer, is kind of chubby, but he's in a bulk period, so I get it. I trust him because I have seen pictures. He was ripped in the past, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah, he knows how to do that. And he knows
Yeah,
that, you know, the bulk, this is planning. I'm going to be putting on muscle, and you can't be anabolic and catabolic at the same time. So it's going to be one or the other. So yeah, but he knows it, and that's the difference. But yeah, I even have a hard time with a trainer who's never been overweight.
yeah,
So you don't know what it's
that's true.
like, you know, to do that, right? Yeah. So but it's again, we all get to choose what credibility factors we have when we decide, which goes back to the skill set of a salesperson is to uncover what those are. Before you sell, how does this person make a decision? What is important to them? How do they define value? Instead of just hear all my value propositions, ask questions and listen first, because they'll tell you exactly why they'll buy if you listen. If you don't listen, then you're just shooting in the dark and hoping something sticks versus just spending 80% of your time listening and then 20% of your time saying, here's how we might be able to help on these things that are important to you. And that's what we should be doing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I wanted to make a question like about neuroscience that you mention a lot. How do you use neuroscience to help people like become more persuasive communicators? Like what you are actually doing? I wanted to
Well, so
understand
the
this.
one thing that we all have in common is that we have a brain. Whether you're speaking Greek and I'm speaking English, we have a brain. And if I were to approach you in a way that attacked you, I don't care what language you speak, you would defend yourself, right?
Yes.
We don't need to speak the same language to feel a threat. Like, it doesn't matter. And so sometimes the language and the tone, my body language, can create an unsafe environment or a threatening environment. And so we look at that from a neuroscience perspective is how do we create what's called psychological safety? Psychological safety is when somebody feels safe to share an idea without fear of retribution or ridicule. So if I'm trying to, you know, it's also to say, can I buy into this product without feeling like I'm going to lose my money? Okay, I don't know anything about ad spend. I've done it before. It didn't work. Why would it work with you? That's not feeling psychologically safe. But if you say, a lot of our clients have felt and reported that they've done this before and it didn't work, which is why I want to show you, here are 10 case studies of our last 10 clients and the results that we got in them. We want you to be the 11th. And so now I see a track record and a history that starts creating safety and comfort into a process where then now I can look at this and go, oh, okay, hold on a second. These guys have done it before. This isn't their first time. So that creates more comfort. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. You remove the psychological barriers this way, and then he's more acceptable to the idea, okay, it can happen a new change to my bad situation, for example.
For sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Great
great.
question, though.
Okay.
Another question that I have is was like it is more about you specifically. You have sold people your services when you are very known right now, but in the past you weren't. Like so you have sold to people in both ways. You having authority and you not having authority.
Yep.
So how much different it is for you? Like, do you actually see the difference, or you have forgot how difficult it was, like in the past?
Oh, no, I have not forgotten it because I spent most of my career in that.
Yeah.
I never forget it. I never forget it, and I never take it for granted. It's walking around being pretty much invisible to people, and rightly so, like we all feel. And going into sales situations and having to build that credibility. That's why presentation was so important, that we answer 5 things. I sell myself, I sell the company, I sell an idea, I sell the investment, I sell the timing. Those are things of 5 sales that need to happen. But when you walk into an event that you're speaking at and they've spent 4 months promoting you, 1,000 people are holding your book with a smile, it is a much different sales process. But now a lot of people want to skip the first part to get to that. I don't think you can. And if you do, you don't know what to do with that attention, because there's still a sales process that goes with it. You still, with attention, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to deliver? And some people say, does it change you? So no, I was a nobody for the majority of my life, and so having a little bit of attention doesn't change who I am. It's more interesting and fascinating. Going through an airport and people recognize you. Being in Saudi Arabia and people saying, "Hey, is this you?" and stopping you in the airport. It feels great. But then my question is, what do I do with that? And so then I stop and I talk. What do you do? Oh, I'm the CEO of the site. Oh, that's really cool. Hey, let's connect. And now I connected with somebody who's a CEO through that. So I'm driving them down a sales process, sitting in first class. Somebody recognizes you. Great. I set up a meeting and we drive a presentation to uncover their needs and I can sell something. But it's still really what it matters is it driving the process for me, or is it serving my ego? And the reason I don't allow it to serve my ego is because it can be taken away really quickly. Like, so people are so worried about TikTok being shut down. We have 1.1 million plus followers on TikTok, and aren't you worried about it? I'm like, no. Like, why? I said, one, I can't control it. Two, I was already good at this prior to social media. And three, God, it might be kind of fun to go back to some of the old school stuff and see who survives then. And what would you do without a following? Oh, you got to show up in person. Okay, let's see what you got. And so for me, I wasn't worried about it. One, because I couldn't control it. Two, it just doesn't. I don't spend time or energy on that which I can't control. And we lost it for what, 4 hours, and it was back.
Yeah,
Didn't
exactly.
didn't think twice about it.
Yeah, for sure. And also, there is another aspect to it. For the people that they started selling when they are already known, they think that they are so good at selling, so they creating courses. No, you are not that good at selling. You are not. So you are like you give wrong advice. Like I have seen people give wrong advice, especially to selling, which is like so open, like everybody can create a course. And I have tried a lot of things that simply do not work.
Yeah, we are in the time of the guru, right? The overnight guru, the person that's sharing information, and it's it's hard when everyone's given a voice and they learn how to edit something really well. And whether they have vanity metrics, they purchase the followers, or they had a few viral videos that now they're there to qualify. Now, some of them are, and there's some really good ones. We just have to be judicious in really vetting out who is that I'm learning from. And unfortunately, a lot of these online course gurus, they found a way to make a lot of money, but a lot of them are facing a lot of backlash and lawsuits now. And so we just have to really be careful of people that have shortcut the process. It's really hard to shortcut experience. I know that the good marketers, and more power to them. I don't think I'm a very good marketer, even though we've done good. I've just surrounded myself with some really good people. I'm a much better salesperson, but I do understand branding. So it's funny, but the marketing execution has always been the hard part. Well, so then I find people that are good at it. And so that piece though is we do have to really start vetting out who it is that we're allowing to teach us things. But I will say this: when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Even if that person is a shyster or lying, but they give good advice, and that person takes that good advice and does something with it, that's an okay thing. But we just have to really be careful who we're taking advice from. To your point, which was some people are just giving really, really poor advice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it becomes unethical.
Yeah, for sure. It's I don't know if it's unethical if they don't know that they're doing it. Because
Right.
but still, yeah, there are a ton of wrong advice out there. One last question that I have, I could ask you questions for hour because you are open book, like you know so many things. But I want to ask this little thing that I think that can help the podcast side of the things that we do. We have done over 150 episodes, Greek
Good for
and
you.
English, together, and I definitely think that you are the best communicator. Like you are so smooth at the podcast. Like you talk at a specific amount of time. Like you give a space for us to actually express our thoughts. You communicate yourself very clearly. So,
Thank you.
do you think that this is something that you have acquired because you've been to so many podcasts, or is it something that you've acquired with all the other skills that you have, say, selling yourself? And like, which is the most important thing? Of course, everything, but which is the most
Right.
important thing? I'm trying to find a hack here. I'm sure
Yeah.
you can understand it because everyone needs a shortcut, basically.
Well, I'd say that I know you're trying to find a hack, which I love that. I would just say that there's certain things you don't want to hack. And maybe the hack is an acceptance that time, energy, effort, repetition really is the hack. That really saying, okay, well, one, doing a lot of podcasts helps. It really helps. But if you don't review the podcast and how you did, you may not see the opportunities for improvement. And so there's a reviewing process that goes with it. Speaking on stage and practicing ideas and contemplating and reflection. So I tell people that the best storytellers, the best communicators and leaders are the best storytellers. And the best storytellers are the most reflective. They reflect on their life. They reflect on times that happen. And they reflect and they reflect and they reflect. And then they get asked to be on a podcast. And the question that they've been reflecting on for 2 years comes up, and they share an idea like, wow, that was off the cuff. Well, I've been reflecting on that and ruminating on this and just thinking about it and philosophizing and asking questions. And now I'm just sharing what I found with you. And so I think that, for those looking at this, be okay and enjoy the journey, enjoy the process of experience, enjoy the lessons of falling and failing. Because if you don't fail, you won't be able to relate to the 99% of the world that is constantly feeling like they fail. Me included. We all do that. And if you're not out there failing at something you love to do, then it's really hard for you to relate. And here's the hack. You can't avoid failure, and you cannot avoid awkwardness, because awkwardness and failure are requirements for growth. It is part of the equation. You have to do both. And the moment you realize that you can enjoy it, because it's like, wow, I fell down. That was tough. All right, let's try this again. But I got a little bit better, and I got a little bit better, and I got a little bit better. And all of a sudden, all those little bit better start stacking together, and you're really far down the line. Even though you probably held the mentality of like, I got to get better, you still might be better than the rest. But in your mind, there's always more room to improve. And that room to improve and that desire to keep going, I think, is really what keeps us alive over the long term. It's that pursuit of capability. And so for me, I would say don't look for the hack, but get in the game, do it as often as you can, practice as often as you can. Like there's no, like somebody says, what's the hack to get into the NBA? There is none. You have to play for years, and you have to sweat and suffer, have the right mindset, get coached, fail a bunch, put your body through training you never thought you could do. There's no hack. And I don't think we should search for one. But now, are there tips and tricks? Yeah, right? Stand taller, smile more, listen more, record yourself and review it so that you can go, oh, I like this, I like that. Watch other people and compare yourself, not from a, to in a negative sense, but oh, they stand this way, I stand that way. Okay, I don't like that. Let me try that one. So I like how I do it more. There's always a process to refine and improve. And if you do that long enough and you enjoy the process and you continue to learn, continue to feed your mind new ideas, surround yourself around really good people, those are fundamental things that no matter what happens, you'll grow in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about, like, because you have coached so many people, like, how do you coach like someone that struggles with confidence or like imposter syndrome? In the
Yeah,
past, when I was starting before the podcast, I was having a lot of imposter syndrome and like a lot
yeah,
of issues with my confidence. So I want to listen to your approach.
for sure. So when it comes to imposter syndrome, one, I had to learn a couple things and I had to rethink confidence and imposter syndrome. One is, and I heard this from, I think it was Jordan Peterson. He said, well, one, when it comes to imposter syndrome, one, you have to understand you're not alone. We all have it, and you're not unique for having it. Number two, all that it means is that you've leveled up in one status of your life. So you were not a podcaster, now you are, and you have to look in the mirror and go, am I a podcaster? I've never been one. Will anybody listen to me? Will I know what to say? Well, that's what happens anytime you're new at something. That's not imposter. You're just new. And if you go, okay, one, everybody faces it. That just means I leveled up. So that's a positive thing. I say it lasts 2 weeks. During that time of the imposter syndrome, you pull out a pad of paper and a pen and you take notes. After 2 weeks, you realize, hold on a second, these people don't know that much more than I do. And then you realize, okay, now confidence, here's the thing. You will never have confidence prior to doing something for the first time. You cannot wait for confidence to start. Confidence is the reward. It's the payoff of courage to do something you haven't done. You did something, you did it, but you did something really good, and life comes on and says, here's a little bit of confidence for next time. And you take that little bit of confidence and you invest it into the next time. And you do it again. This is a little bit of confidence. Thank you. Good job. And I do that over and over and over again. And I build all this confidence. By the time I have all that confidence, I don't really need it because I've already been doing it. Now I can take that to do something even better. And so to me, it's like confidence is never a precursor to action or to doing big things. Courage is it, to act even without the confidence, and to realize that if I do good and I start searching for things, I will start stacking up the small little wins to create the confidence to do it.
Yeah.
So I would say this last piece, if imposter syndrome is also leveling up in a status area, you should seek imposter syndrome every day. That means you're leveling up every day.
Yeah, it makes sense. You articulated really great. Now, I wanted to go to the Amplify method, framework, if you want to walk us through this and tell us more.
Yeah, so the Amplify method or formula comes down to understanding how a human being processes information. And, if I were to say to you the words used car salesman, what word comes to mind for you?
Used car salesman?
Mm-hmm.
Like some dollar amount, like $30,000, $40,000.
Okay, so dollar amounts. John, what word comes to mind when I say used car salesman?
A sleazy salesman, I think.
Sleazy salesman, right?
Yeah.
And that's what most people come up with. So why did you come up with that? I just said a profession. Well, the way you came up with that was you had to access your past experiences. And those are what's called past frames of reference. And so you pull that frame of reference to the current to put a frame around this idea of used car salesman. And the frame you put around it was untrustworthy, sleazy salesperson. And so that's the first step, is understanding how framing works. We use framing as a construct of reality to understand the world in front of us. And so that frame turns into a narrative, which is a story to help us understand the world in front of us. And that narrative and the frame both construct our reality and understanding of what's happening. And so if I were to realize that I'm a used car salesman and I need to get you to trust me, and I say I'm a used car salesman, you're not going to trust me because of the frames of reference. Now, the thing was, is because I didn't provide a frame for you, you had to use your own to understand the profession. But if I were to tell you that my grandfather was in Cuba right before the Cuban Revolution, and he knew that wasn't good for his family, so he wrote a letter to the president of the United States at the time saying, if you get me and my family out of this country, I will come in and fight for yours. And somehow that letter made it to the right person, and they pulled my grandfather out, my grandmother, my aunt, and my mother, and he served in the American Armed Forces for 8 years. After his service, he finally landed in the United States, his American dream. and he landed in Homestead, Florida. Now, if you don't know Homestead, Florida, it was nothing there except for Patrick Air Force Base. So there were no jobs, meaning he couldn't make any money. So his American dream was very much limited to how far he could walk. But there was somebody that believed in my grandfather, saw what he did for the country, and got him into an older vehicle. And that older vehicle allowed him to extend his reach by 50 to even 100 miles sometimes, allowing him to make more money and changing the trajectory of his life, my mother's life, and ultimately my life. And that person who believed that my grandfather was a used car salesman. So now, did you have any negative thoughts about this person? Not at all,
No.
because
Only positive
yeah,
ones.
kind of fun to meet him, But what
Yeah,
happened? The
but
difference was I did not provide a frame before, so you had to create your own, which was Sleazy Salesman. I provided a frame of this person who helped my grandfather, who was a war vet. And now all of a sudden, if you bought into my frame, then that frame informed and influenced and changed your perspective, which really changes your reality of the person in front of you. So that's what framing is. And then delivering a message with that frame. And so somebody says, tell us about something you're proud of. And I say, I got straight A's my last year in school. Okay, well, the thoughts, okay, so straight A's your last year, so you're a procrastinator? So I don't want you procrastinating for our company. Oh, no. And so that's not what I meant. Oh, did mommy and dad pay for school so you didn't have to work hard? And so now all of a sudden, because I didn't provide a frame, it forces my listener to provide a frame based on their past experience. And I don't know their past experience. But if I were to say, tell us something you're proud of, and I say, you know what, growing up, I was surrounded by a lot of adults that told me I wasn't real smart. And when adults speak to you that way, you tend to act that way. And I didn't do real well in school. And so something happened where I looked myself in the mirror and I said, either I'm going to believe them forever or I'm going to do something about it. So I went out and got the help that I needed and worked as hard as I could. And I'm proud to tell you that I got straight A's my last year in school. Now, John, I'm assuming if I do get a chance to work with you and your team, this is the tie down, that there are going to be times where our backs are going to be against the wall. We're going to be facing some seemingly insurmountable challenges. But I promise you this, if I get a chance to be on your team, I'll be out there overcoming those challenges in the same way I overcame them in my own personal life, the frame, except this time for you and for your team. Frame, message, tie down. See how that I used the story to deliver the message of value and then made it mean something in the context of what was important to you, which is how I can help your business.
Yeah,
that's really
that's
powerful.
amazing. You are an amazing storyteller. Like the way that you framed all the things, so it was amazing. I think that you have shared so much, and I really want to have actionable tips. So not like 10,000 tasks that I have to do. So I think that we can close the pod. Do you have anything that you want to share as a closing?
Well, I'd say if people want to learn more, I'd love for you to get my book, Amplify Your Influence. We've got what we call our Influence Mastery Program coming out. It's a 30-day micro change, one micro change per day. Very, very attainable. Doesn't matter what language you speak. It really is a very powerful process where you'll transform your entire influence world in 30 days. That's launching in about a week. You can follow me at Learn with Rene, RENE, where we're doing 40 videos per day, all micro learning, all lessons, 1,200 videos a month. No sales, just no selling you anything. We're just putting out content as a way of growing our brand. And so we'd love for you to follow us and inquire if you want to learn anything.
Okay, that was amazing. We're definitely going to follow you, and we're going to prompt our listeners at the end of the video to follow you. It was an amazing, amazing podcast. I really
you,
loved
sir.
Thank you
having
very
you.
much
It was
for
an
coming.
honor. And yeah, so we talk to the next one.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I appreciate both of you and keep doing the good work.
Thank you.
Take care.